Hello everyone, this is my third lecture on database management systems, in which we will cover database system concepts and architecture. So, we have already seen what data abstraction is. Data abstraction, it is the suppression of the details of data organization and storage from the user. That means the user is not aware of how the data is actually stored, and data abstraction also means providing only the essential details as per the requirement of the user, which means that the database being a collection of all the data for an enterprise, different users, they need different levels of the data, and the data that is needed for a user will be made available to the user. A data model is a collection of concepts that can be used to describe the structure of a database as required by the various users, and it provides this necessary abstraction that we have discussed. We have seen earlier that there are different levels of users for the database, such as the administrators, the database designers, the end users, the software engineers. So, different kind of data is required for each of the users, and the data models, they have been designed to provide the users with these different kind of data as required by them at the various levels. Accordingly, there are three categories of the data models: the high level or the conceptual data model, the low level or the physical data model, and the representational or implementational or the logical data model. Let's have a look at the high level data model. High level data model, it applies to that how users see the data, that is how users perceive the data, in the sense that what are the objects in the data and what are the descriptors for those objects in the data, and what are the relationships between the different objects in the data. When we say the high level or the conceptual data model, then we will consider the entity relationship model for studying the conceptual model in detail. Here we have shown an example which says that there is a entity which is called the project. The project, it has attributes or descriptors which are describing the project, the name of the project, the number of the project, the location of the project, and the controlling department of the project. So, this entity relationship model, or also called the ER model, is describing the project which exists in a system, in a mini world, in this manner. Now, this is another example of the entity relationship model, where we have employees and we have projects as the objects. There is a relationship works on between the employees and the projects, meaning that the employees work on projects. Then for the employees, we have the attributes ENO, name and hours, and for the project we have the attributes PID, supervisor, and P name. Low level or the physical data model applies to that how the data is actually stored in the physical storage, and it is generally meant for the computer specialists and not for the end users. It describes the storage of the data, the storage of the metadata, and the access paths and techniques for the data. The representational or the implementational model is concerned with how the data is actually represented, and the implementational model that we will study in the relational database management systems is the relational model. In the relational model, the representational model uses tables, also called relations, where the tables, they are corresponding to the objects that are there. We have seen project, we have seen employee, and to the relationships that are there between these objects. Also the tables, they have columns where the names of the columns, they correspond to the attributes in the or the features or the descriptors that we are using for the various relationships or the objects. Some examples of the representational data model are the relational model, network model, hierarchical model, and the object oriented model, of which I have already told you we will study the relational model in detail. Now, let us see what a database schema and a database state is. A database schema refers to the description of the database which is defined during the design of the database, and we say it is not expected to change frequently, whereas a schema diagram is the diagrammatic representation of the schema, and all these three categories of the data models, they define the database schemas and the schema diagram. For example, let us have a look here. This is a schema diagram in the conceptual model using the ER model, and this is a schema diagram in the representational model using the relational model. So, what do we see here? Here we see that in the conceptual model, we have drawn a ER diagram which is telling us that we have the employee, we have the relationship, we have the project, and so on. Similarly, the same thing, it has been converted or transformed into a relational model in the form of tables. So, this is the schema diagram in the relational model and in the conceptual model. So, we have seen what a schema is. A schema is basically, it is the description of the database which is defined using any model. So, here is the description of the database which is defined. Now, what is the state of a database? Sometimes also called the snapshot or the database instance or the database occurrence. Look, when we have a schema of the database, the schema of the database means only the structure of the database. Let me talk of the relational model. I have the structure of the database here, that there is a database which is consisting of 3 tables, and these 3 tables have some columns with some name, right. So, this is called a schema. Now, when I talk of the database state, whenever the schema for a database is populated means it is filled with data, then it is called the state of a database. And the state for a database will change frequently with the changes in the mini world. What does that mean? I have a state of a database at any point of time with 3 employees over here, E1, E2 and E3, and the names of the 3 employees. Now, let us say I add another employee with the name Abha. So, what happens? The state of the mini world has changed because a new employee has probably entered the organization. So, that change should be reflected in the state of the database by showing this new employee over here. So, this means that every time there is a change in the mini world, the state or the occurrence of the database will change. Again, this is just the difference between the schema and the state. So, this is the schema, only the empty structure with no values over there. So, we can say a schema is a empty state with no data, and it is the initial state of the database when no data has been entered. when the first data is entered into the database, we start calling it a state or the instance or the occurrence of the data. So, the moment we enter the first data, it becomes the state, and then every time a new data is entered, the state is said to be changed, or we say that the database has entered another state. Now, let us talk of the 3 schema architecture of the database and data independence. We have already seen that 3 important aspects of the database approach. They are the physical storage of the data and the metadata, then the insulation between the programs and the data, the programs that create the data and the actual data, and the support for multiple user views. That is, the different users, they can use the data at different levels. All these 3 aspects, they are supported by the 3 schema architecture of the database, which is shown over here. The goal of the 3 schema architecture is to separate the user applications from the physical database, and it consists of 3 levels: the internal level, the conceptual level, and the external or the view level. So, what is the internal level? The internal level over here, this is the internal level, which is given by the internal schema. We just said what is a schema? A schema is the structure of the database. So, what is the internal level? The internal level is the structure of the database, which is represented by the internal schema, and it is at the physical storage. It is represented by the physical model. So, we have this stored database over here, which is described by the internal schema, and it uses the physical data model. Now, what is the conceptual level? The conceptual level here, it consists of the conceptual schema. When we say this conceptual schema, it describes the structure of the whole database for a community of users. That means the entire database for a set of users or for all the users who are going to use that database. And secondly, the conceptual level, it hides the details of the physical storage structures from the users at the conceptual level. It specifies the entities, the data types, relationships, and the constraints, and it uses the representational model that we have just done, right. That is, this is the representational model that we just do. So, at the conceptual level, we have the database in the form of the tables or the relations. Then the third is the external or the view level. We know that for any database, there is a set of multiple users who will use the data in different forms. So, all these users, they will have a different external view. We see users have different external views at the external level, and the external view will give to the user the data that the user requires and the type of model that is used for the external level is the representational model, that is again which is in the form of tables and relations. Let us see an example over here. In this example, we see that this is a conceptual schema. Okay? That means, we have shown in the form of a relation, a schema, and these are the various attributes. Now, the sum of the user views at the external level can be just the student ID, course, branch, and section, because one user may require only these 4 attributes. He is not interested in the rest of the attributes. Another user may require student number and name. So, that becomes another external schema. Then we have the student ID, name, F name, M name, and DOB for another user or set of users. So, that becomes another external view or external schema. And the user views, they will always depend upon the requirement of the users. Since there are multiple users, we will have multiple user views. Then another important thing in this 3 schema architecture is what we have written over here, the external conceptual mapping and the conceptual internal mapping. Now, what happens in the database is that any query that is generated at the external level or by the end user, that is transformed into a query for the conceptual schema. So, that mapping between the external query, that is the transformation of the external query to the conceptual schema, is accomplished by the external conceptual mapping. Now, next what happens is that the conceptual internal mapping, it is going to transform that query to be able to access the actual data from the database, and if the query requires some result, that is some data is going to be returned from the database to the external user, then first of all the conceptual internal mapping, it will convert the data which is returned from the physical storage to a form in the conceptual schema, and then the external conceptual mapping will transform that into a form that can be made available to the user. So, these are called the mappings which are required for transforming the form of the data from one level to another. Data independence, the 3 schema architecture, it can be used to further explain the concept of the data independence. Data independence means the capacity to change the schema at one level of the database without having to change the schema at the next higher level. That means, we can change the schema at one level. Let us say we can change the schema at the physical level without having to change the schema at the next higher level, which is the conceptual level. Similarly, we can change the schema at the conceptual level without having to change the schema at the next higher level, which is the external level. Accordingly, we have 2 types of data independence, that is the physical data independence and the logical data independence. The logical data independence, it is the capacity to change the conceptual schema without any changes to the external schema or the application programs that are querying the data from the database. For example, let us say we expand a database, that means we add new columns to a table or a relation, then that should not affect any of the external schemas. Suppose we change the constraints that are applied to the various columns or the attributes, that should not change the external schema, or we reduce or decrease the schema by removing the data, some of the data items or the attributes. In most cases, this should not affect the external schemas, but in some cases, if the attribute that is being removed belongs to any of the external schemas, then that particular external schema will be affected. For example, let us see over here, if we have this schema at the conceptual level, then the user or the external schemas, these are some of the user or the external schemas. Now, let us say I remove this date of birth from the conceptual level or the conceptual schema, then none of the schemas over here, they are affected. There are 3 external schemas and none of them are affected. So, we have been able to make a change to the conceptual schema without making any change to the existing external schemas. Similarly, let us say I add one more column over here, which is the contact number. So, the contact number, I have added this column, it is not making any difference to any of the existing external schemas. It may be used in the other schemas. So, this is what is the logical data independence. Now, what is physical data independence? Physical data independence is the capacity to change the internal schema, that is at the physical storage level, without having to change the conceptual schema. That means, we are making some changes at the physical schema, but there are no changes at the conceptual schema. For example, let us say we change the way the data is stored in the physical storage, or we change some of the access techniques that are being used to access the data in the at the physical schema. So, all this is not going to affect the conceptual schema. The conceptual schema, it will remain as such, it will not be affected. Why? Because this is all due to data abstraction. The next topic that we will cover is database languages. The design of a database is implemented by specifying the conceptual schema. That means, we need to define the conceptual schema, we need to specify the internal schema, and we need to specify the mapping between the conceptual and the internal schema. In other words, I will say that for the design of a database, we need to define all the schemas at the conceptual level and all the schemas at the internal level and the mappings between these two. This feature is accomplished by the database languages, which consist of 4 main categories: the data definition language or the DDL, data manipulation language or the DML, the transaction control language, which is the TCL, and the data control language, which is the DCL. Now, let us have a look at them one by one. Now, the data definition language, as the name specifies, the data definition language is used to define the structure or the schema. That means, it specifies the properties that are there for the various data that are there in the database, and the database will check. It will also specify the various constraints that are there on the data, and whenever the data is using any data, that is either it is retrieving the data or it is updating the data, then it will check against these constraints. Though we will do the data definition language in detail, but just for the sake of example, we have some commands like create, alter, drop, rename, which belong to the category of data definition language. Create is used to create some objects in the database, alter to alter the structure of the objects, drop to delete some objects from the database, rename is to rename some objects in the database. Let us see an example of create. Create table department. So, what are we saying? That we need to create a table by the name of department. What are the attributes or columns? Department name, building and budget. So, we have defined the attributes, that is the structure of the table, and then department will be of the character type of size 20, building will be of the character type of size 15, and budget will be some numeric type. So, this is how we are defining our table using the data definition language. Another example I have given you over here is of drop table. That means, I want to delete this table by the name of department from my database. Data manipulation language, it is used for populating the data and for modifying the data. That means, we can insert data, we can retrieve data, we can delete data and we can modify data once the table structure has been created. Again, some examples are select to retrieve data, insert to insert data, update to update the existing data and to delete the data we use delete. Example, select star is for all, I have told you earlier also, select star from student. That means, I want to select all the records from the student, I am retrieving the data from the database. Update student, set marks is equal to marks plus 5. So, for all students I am updating the marks by 5 and the last is delete star from student, that means delete all the records from the table student. These are some examples of the DML. The transaction control language, it is used to manage the transactions in the database. What is a transaction? A transaction is a logical unit of work. It is a logical unit of work which is consisting of some operations to perform some task, and it is also used to manage the changes which are made by the DML statements. Examples are commit, which is used to permanently save any transaction into the database. Rollback can be restore the database to a last committed state, and save point can be a temporary save point in the transaction, so that if required we can roll back or go back, reverse the transaction up to that save point. DCL means data control language, which consists of the control access to the data which is stored in the database, or let us say the data authorizations. Who is authorized to use the database and who is authorized to use what part of the database and who is authorized to use which operations on the database. We can grant the permissions, that is allow the users to perform specific tasks, or we can revoke the permissions, that is cancel the granted permissions. In the relational database, the structured query language is used in the role of DDL, DML, TCL and DCL, and any SQL statement is referred to as a query. A query specifies which data is to be retrieved rather than how to retrieve it. This is important. A query in the SQL will always specify what is to be done and not how it is to be done. So, when I have written select star from student, so I have simply written what is to be done, select star for student, but then how it is to be done, that we need not specify, that the database management system will take care of, and for this reason it is also called a non-procedural or sometimes a declarative language. Very limited programming capacity is there in SQL, which is called the programming language SQL or PL/SQL. Now, when we look at the queries they can be generated either as single queries at the SQL prompt, or they can be embedded in some general purpose programming language program. So, whenever the queries they are embedded in some programming language program, then that programming language is called the host language and the SQL is called the data sub language. And the SQL statements in the programming language, they must be identified so that a pre-compiler can access and process them. On the other hand, the SQL which is used in the standalone interactive manner, that is at the SQL prompt, is called a query language. These are the references for the topics that we have done today. Thank you.